Hey everyone, my name is Mike Vaughn. I'm a writer at Geek Vibes Nation, and I'm also the author of The Ultimate Guide to Strange Cinema.
And I'm Dillon Gonzalez. I'm the editorial director for geekvibesnation.com and also a co-host of the Home Dance Film Festival podcast.
And welcome to a Video Addict new release roundup. If you're new here, welcome. What we do here is we go back and forth reviewing some of the new home video releases, some mainstream stuff, some like little indie stuff, and kind of everything in between. But before I get started, I'm really excited because we have a giveaway this week. Really exciting. We are giving away two digital codes for Halloween Ends. And I'm going to be reviewing that title. But if you want a free digital code, it's very simple. All you need to do is comment below and let us know what title we talked about that you are most excited for. And it's that easy. You'll be entered to win. And who doesn't love free movies, right?
Exactly. It's so easy. All you got to do is just bear us for like an hour.
I mean, that might be price enough, at least on my end. So,
Yeah.
okay. With that, I'm going to kick it off. Also, bear with me. My voice isn't usually this haggard, but you
You've been
know,
hitting the nog too hard, haven't you?
yeah. She'll tell anyone. So my first title, again, I was so excited for this, which is Smile on 4K from Paramount. And the back.
Should I just do the smile the whole time you're talking? Just so.
Yes, that. I have to say, before I get into this, the marketing for this was next level good. Um, here is the inside. There'll be a digital code. It's not in there, but yours will have it. Yeah, so I have to admit that like when I saw the trailer for this, I like wasn't really that excited. It looked very cheesy, it looked very generic, and I have to say I was like pretty pleasantly surprised. I know one of the biggest complaints is that it kind of borrows from It Follows, and while I don't think that's necessarily um, wrong, I do think that it does kind of enough to make it stand out. The acting is really great. I think the premise is, I mean, just engaging enough to kind of hook you in and make you excited to see what else is going on. And I won't give away the ending, but I love kind of how bleak it is. I think that there's um, a very nihilistic streak that kind of runs through it, which I also really appreciated. So, um, yeah, really good. I also love how this has a commentary track, and y'all know that's one of my favorite things. So, it also, one of the big selling points, it has the original short film that this was based on, and some featurettes, deleted scenes. It's packed. I love when Paramount, like, or really any label, just really gives you your bang for your buck. So, Smile, pretty fun movie. Definitely check it out. And the release is pretty awesome.
Yeah, that was one of the big like box office successes for horror movies this year. Paramount was very on a real hot streak for the most part of the year, so I'm glad that one got such a great 4K release. I was a big fan of the short film that's included, so definitely pick that up if you're interested, and make sure to check out the special features. My first title, also sticking with 4K, a little bit older. This is from Shout Factory, and this is Wargames on 4K Ultra HD. The late 1980s cult favorite with starring Matthew Broderick. Got him on the Blu-ray disc, and then you have kind of like the 4K disc art over here. There is no reversible cover art. I had actually never seen this movie, but I've always kind of like heard about it in popular culture and stuff, and just like kind of the nerd's dream of like they're having their love of like computers and video games lead to kind of saving the world, which is a fun potential benefit of nerd culture. But what I really like about this, so the basic plot is that Matthew Broderick plays a young man who is like obsessed with computers and technology and games and everything, and he accidentally hacks into a government kind of system and sets off a chain of events that might trigger like a World War III, basically. And kind of mixed up in this whole thing is he has a friend played by Ali Sheedy who is kind of like a romantic interest as well, but just kind of like snowballs into this interesting government ploy where he is coming along for this ride of potential World War III, and just him having to use his knowledge to try to prevent that. So it's kind of like a high stakes like fantasy, like technological fantasy, but it's a very entertaining movie, and it was actually a little bit more grounded than I expected to be, because just based on that premise alone, I thought it might be a little like campy or hokey or whatever. And there are a lot of like fun moments, a very fun movie, but there's also some more like serious moments, and I really appreciated the overall like message of just how like war is futile, and how like anyone who pretty much like anyone who engages in like warfare, basically both sides are doomed to fail. So I really enjoyed like the technical prowess of this movie, and also the thematic resonance of it, and it's just a lot of fun. And I really like Matthew Broderick. I really like Ali Sheedy. It has a really great ensemble too, like Dabney Coleman and a bunch of great character actors. I was like, ooh, I know that person. I know that person. That's really cool. So all that to say is, I'm glad Shout Factory brought this to my doorstep finally, because I've been wanting to see this for a while. And this 4K is really great. This comes from a 4K scan of the original camera negative. This does come in Dolby Vision. There's no Dolby Atmos audio. It contains the original 2.0 and then a 5.1 mix. I primarily listen to the 5.1 mix. It doesn't get too like bombastic at too many points, but there's a few points where the subwoofer kind of kicks in more. But I think either way, whichever track you choose, it's serving you pretty well. They're all pretty much all the print damage and everything has been cleaned up. I didn't really notice any nicks or scratches. It has really nice colors, really great black levels. There's not any like black crush or anything. This is like a really good encode, which I really appreciated. And then it carries over all the legacy special features. I don't see any new special features, but there's a audio commentary from the director and the writers. There's like a 44-minute 45-minute documentary on the like making of Wargames, which from what I checked out is a little bit more substantial than some, because there's like kind of like not afraid to discuss some of the bumps along the road, which I really appreciate in like some of these making of documentaries, when it's not just kind of glossy and everyone is having a good time. I like to know kind of the dirt. I want to know how the things actually got made. Then there's also just some like brief other featurettes that range usually from about 10 to 15 minutes. There's about 3 or 4 more of those, just about different aspects of the movie. So overall, poured over all the legacy features. This is the best it's ever looked. It looks really great, and Shout Factory has just done a really good job with this. So if you're a fan of like late 80s kind of like teen action, but with like not talking down to the audience, with actually like resonance, Wargames is a lot of fun, and I recommend it. So good on Shout Factory for bringing this one out.
Yeah, that is one that I really enjoyed. It's one that so my husband is a big like techie nerd guy. So like this was right up his alley. I showed him it a while ago. That's kind of the push I needed, because I think I am definitely gonna get that.
For sure.
So my next title is Halloween Ends, and again, you could win a digital code for this.
There you go.
By commenting below what title we discussed that you most liked. But anyways, first of all, I look at this. I love these like embossed covers. I mean, Universal doesn't mess around when it comes to a really nice presentation. So There's the extras. Okay. And then, so that's the inside. So again, the digital code is not in this, but if you get it, it will be there. Or again, you could win one. So yeah, I'm not gonna do a huge review of this because I did do a full video review with Dom where I go into more detail about this. But I will say that Halloween Ends is a mess, but I think it's an interesting one. It's one that I watched, I think, 3 times now, and um, it's so like, and I'm gonna keep this spoiler free just in case there's somebody out there that hasn't seen it, but um, there's aspects that I like. I really like how they swing for the fences, trying to do something interesting and different. But I think they take it to the extreme where it's so uneven and disconnected, and so divorced from the other 2 films. It almost doesn't even feel like it's connected to the other 2 films. Like it's sort of baffling. Um, I think this is maybe the second movie with the least amount of Michael Myers, like screen time.
Yeah.
And I don't necessarily hate that because technically the first film has the least amount of Michael Myers.
Yeah.
Again, not counting Halloween 3, obviously.
I was gonna
But
say, like, outside of Halloween 3.
well, I wanted to clarify because I was like, somebody in the comments going to be like, Halloween
Yeah.
3, you dummy. But, um, but having said that, again, there is something so kind of crazy and weird and almost surreal at times that I was entertained. It just was kind of a mess. But this is a great presentation here. It looks fantastic. Again, I saw this on Peacock for the first time because I kind of couldn't wait. But seeing it now in 4K, I mean, you can tell it's just a lot crisper, a lot better. I mean, the black levels look fantastic. I think Universal really took a lot of care into the 4K presentation here. And again, I mean, it's got some really nice features. Like the deleted scenes are really interesting. I don't want to spoil it, but I think they're definitely worth checking out. So yeah, the movie's a little bit of a mixed bag. Again, if you want to hear my full in-depth thoughts with Dom, I will share the link to that in the description. But yeah, it's fine. It's one of those just very weird messes that is I definitely think it's going to be a movie that's going to be discussed and talked about for a long time with fans.
Oh,
So
for sure. Yeah, I'm also someone, I caught it on Peacock when it first came out because everyone on Twitter was talking about it. I was like, I know I'm going to be spoiled by this if I don't watch it now. And I kind of feel similarly to you. But one thing I want to say about the technical presentation, like whenever I was watching on Peacock, there was times where the sound would go out of sync a little bit, and I was just like, oh, I cannot wait to get this on physical media because it was driving me crazy. I was like, I want to turn this off, but I don't want to be spoiled. So I'm glad it's finally on physical media, so like I can fully enjoy it and not have all these technical issues. So very excited it's finally on 4K.
yeah, and I mean, like one thing I did mention is like I think the score's pretty interesting. So again, it's like nice to have that in a nice high quality.
Absolutely. So if you're have a morbid curiosity, or if you're a fan, I saw a lot of people who really love this one. Like, go for it. This should be a great presentation. My next title on the last episode, I was very on the last proper episode, not taking account our very special Cohen episode. I was very bogged down in a lot of dark and dreary titles and just a lot of just stuff that made me feel bad. So I'm glad to like bring something into my life that just kind of made me feel a little bit better. And that was a classic rom-com from Sony, My Best Friend's Wedding. So Julia Roberts in her prime, Dermot Mulroney, and even old Cameron Diaz right here. So this one I've seen a couple times before. I have to say, this is one where the first time or so that I watched this, I wasn't a huge fan of it, but that is because the Julia Roberts character is kind of the worst at times, because basically her and Dermot Mulroney play like longtime friends. There's an understanding that maybe if they get to a certain point in their lives and they haven't found like another person, they may end up with one another, but they kind of are in each other's lives and just friends until one day he announces that he is engaged to Cameron Diaz, and she kind of starts to get in her head like, oh, I might be losing him. I don't want to lose him. And it kind of becomes almost like a love triangle, but she's just kind of trying to basically torpedo his engagement so she can have him. And this makes her pretty unlikable in a lot of ways, because she's just like, and one thing I really like about this, and one thing that I've grown to appreciate on like subsequent viewings, is I like that this is kind of a subversion of typical romantic comedies, because the lead is not completely likable, and then the other woman, the actual bride to be, played by Cameron Diaz, she is not an unlikable character. You may have like certain preconceived notions going into it, but she's actually a very sweet person, which I think is an interesting, like, they're not making like us one woman like the other woman like completely villainous or dumb or like vapid or anything like that. It's a nice subversion of the romantic tropes, and like it doesn't go down the typical path you might expect of just like Julia Roberts has to like have her day in the sun and stuff, and just like, and it's just an interesting subversion that I've grown to really appreciate on subsequent viewings, is just that they are doing something different with the romantic comedy in this one. So on this most recent viewing, I've grown to like it quite a bit. There's a lot of fun moments. There is a nice like camaraderie and romance and stuff. And I haven't even mentioned her friend, I think played by Rupert Friend, I believe. I think that might be his name. But I like kind of their dynamic of just like having a kind of like a platonic friendship be like a valuable relationship, not just like placing everything in a romantic relationship. So there's a lot in this movie that I really appreciate. And I think we're actually kind of groundbreaking compared to some like romantic comedies we have now that are kind of more subversive or have like kind of like black comedic elements. So yeah, I'll just say it's a really good romantic comedy, and Sony has done a really nice job with this. They have put it out in 4K, newly restored from the original camera negative. It is in Dolby Vision, and this is a very bright picture. It's like very colorful and no print damage. Everything looks really clear and crisp. It retains the original film grain. And this includes both the original 5.1 and new Dolby Atmos audio. And the Dolby Atmos audio sounds great, but you also have the original soundtrack if you want to fall back on that. And it does carry over all the legacy special features. There's a lot of brief featurettes, but it also includes some new features, which is pretty cool. So they include about, I believe it's 20 minutes of deleted scenes that you've never before seen, and an alternate ending, which I did check out the alternate ending. I'm glad they went with the one that they did, because I think it's more thematically impactful. I won't spoil it, but the alternate ending is like an interesting what if, and there's like a notable actor who's in other kind of like romantic comedy type things that makes an appearance. I was like, ooh, that would have been an interesting appearance, but I'll leave that for you romantic comedy fans who pick this up. You'll see the alternate ending. But overall, if you're a fan of this, I think this is a really great upgrade. I did have the old Blu-ray, and I think this is a significant upgrade. There is not a Blu-ray in this for those who are like, if you need to be 4K capable if you get this release. So just a word of warning, if you're wanting to pick this up, this is only 4K, or you had the digital code that comes with it, which was not in the case, but that you can watch streaming if you are concerned about that. So overall, Sony continues their typical great work with this release.
Two things. So one, did you notice that Charles Trotter cameo?
Yes, yeah, I thought that was fun. Yeah, you mentioned that documentary. I think it was like Love Charlie, maybe on a previous Video Addict. So yeah, that was I was like, ooh, I know who that is.
Yeah. And also, not to spoil the alternate ending, but I believe it's the one where Julia Roberts turns into a lizard person at the end.
I'm not gonna spoil it, but I'm just saying, pick it up
um,
if you're interested. I'm not saying it's not that.
that would be pretty rad if it was. So I'm gonna try to keep this pretty positive, and it's a movie that was kind of divisive, but I actually didn't really hate that much. And that is Black Adam. Um,
Now, I have not seen this, so I cannot wait. Yes.
yeah. So what's interesting is, so let me just show off the. So again, there will be a digital code in there. It's just not in there now, but yeah. I heard a lot of people kind of talk about how this felt sort of like a throwback superhero movie where it was a little bit more like stripped back, kind of dumb fun, just sort of like a almost like a one-off superhero movie without really necessarily like building like the pieces to another movie, unless you count the post-credit scene that's very divisive right now, but I won't spoil it. But anyways, yeah, it was like fairly fun. I didn't really engage with the characters a lot. I mean, the primary characters, I actually think Black Adam was kind of like the least interesting character in this movie, which is not great considering it's his
Yeah.
movie. Um, I will say the Justice Society, I think is what they're called. I almost said Justice League, but that's not right. It almost felt like the B squad of the Justice League, which I thought would have been a fun thing to kind of play up, but um, I thought their dynamic was probably the most interesting. Um, in particular, Pierce Brosnan's oh, I'm blanking on his character, but he's like a magical kind of guy. I thought he was really interesting. Again, the plot's not horrible. It's just not very deep. It's very shut your brain off. There was a lot of things I watched with my husband, and I was like, "Wait, what's going on with this? Why? How did we get from X, Y, Z?" Um, but again, if you're just there for just an action spectacle, which this is very much, it's not a bad time. It's just I definitely can understand like a lot of the criticisms. It's it feels like there's a lot of it feels like they're trying to get to an emotional cores and some like set up something interesting, but it never really sticks the landing. And I'm trying to say that like super vaguely because there is kind of like some emotional things and like some twists that they kind of like hammer in there. But it's fine. This is a really nice presentation. I do love the featurettes. Again, Warner Brothers didn't just plop this out. We do get some extras. Picture looks great. I saw this first on streaming and then on 4K, and again, this is much better. You don't get that as we kind of talk about. You don't get that compression. You don't get that kind of like um, sort of like digital jerkiness and stuff with when you stream it. So yeah, it looks great. We got Adobe Atmos track, and again, this is a very action sound heavy movie, so you do really get a nice depth and sound. So yeah, overall, movie's fine. I didn't hate it. I didn't love it. It was just it was what it was, but um it is a really nice presentation. So if you are a fan, and I know there are people that do like this movie, and again, it's not awful. I just thought it's not great either. So
Mhm.
um but yeah, so I mean it is a nice 4K release. So if you like the movie or if you're just like a diehard DC fan, I think it's worth picking up for sure.
Yeah, I look forward to checking that one out to see which side of the fence I fall on. I mean, I do like The Rock quite a bit, but we shall see where I fall in. My next title is one that it comes from 88 Films, and it is Dragons Forever with Jackie Chan. And here is the back. And I just realized I have not completely taken off this art, so I will have to do that as I am talking to fully show off the packaging. But first, I will show off everything. Here is the cover art here. And see, is there there's reversible. I'll get to that in a second. So this includes the 4K disc and a Blu-ray disc, which I believe there's also a standalone Blu-ray if you are interested in that. Here are some like kind of art cards, postcards, and getting to the reversible art. Oh, that's interesting. Okay. Kind of like an exaggerated version of the characters here.
Like that.
Yeah. So I will probably be turning that around whenever I store it. And as with certain 88 Films releases, you get some cool booklets and cover art, which I will show off as soon as I safely get this cover art back in. Okay, so we have a fold-out poster, which seems pretty large, but that's pretty cool. So here's the one side, and then the other exaggerated art.
Nice.
So yeah, that you have that. And make sure, collapsed right back. And then you have a really thick booklet here. So you have here, and you have some like essays and artwork or like photographs and stuff. So a lot of great stuff in here to give just this extra value. So I will continue peeling off this cover art as I'm talking about it, but all this is to say, Dragons Forever is a Jackie Chan movie from the late 80s. The basic plot of this is that Jackie plays a lawyer who is working for a kind of a chemical company that are not exactly up to any good, basically, and he is representing them, and he is up against a rival lawyer who is trying to basically actually do some good in the world and take them down. And throughout this process, he is trying to he is also kind of like, this movie has kind of a weird tone. There's a lot of action. There's a lot of like weird comedy, and because he's like a womanizer and like pretty much like hitting on every woman he comes across, and it's kind of like a running joke. But along this, he tries to like woo the rival lawyer, all the while basically the evildoers, the evil chemical company, have hired people to try to basically tank their case and try to make sure that they do not take them down. And then it kind of all comes with like Jackie learning that he is like coming to the terms with the fact that he is representing the bad guys and kind of trying to change his ways. So it all devolves into like an action spectacle, as you would expect from a Jackie Chan movie. You get a lot of fun stunts, a lot of really great fun fights, interesting objects being like thrown around and everything. And like with Jackie, you can usually count on just balls to the wall, just craziness, and him putting his body in harm's way and everything. And it's a lot of fun. So all is to say, it's a fun time. It's not my favorite Jackie Chan movie I've ever seen, but he provides basically a base level of entertainment that he usually always hits. And this seems kind of like middling, or maybe it's slightly better than middling. It's a very entertaining movie. I've just seen some slightly better executions of it, but it's a lot of fun. I had a lot of fun over Christmas break watching this. And this 4K is really great. And look, I got the cover art off of this. So here is the back cover art here underneath the little J card. So you got that. But this comes from a 4K restoration. This actually has 3 different cuts of the movie. There's the original Hong Kong version that's been restored. There's also a 4K restoration of the English version and a 4K restoration of the Japanese version. So they really took the steps to make sure like they cover all their bases and that you're getting great restoration no matter what you choose, like what your preference is. I went for the original Hong Kong cut because I like to see stuff in its original languages, and that kind of skipped around some of the other cuts. This also includes a new audio commentary, a bunch of outtakes and trailers. There's 2 interviews with some of the like stuntmen and action stars that range from 35 to 40 minutes. And there's another 13-minute interview and then a series of featurettes. So this is a pretty stacked release, all things considered. And like I said, great packaging, which I showed off. And I believe this is actually under $30 right now on Amazon. So that's pretty good for a 4K release in this like thick, like chipbook packaging with a booklet cover, like poster. It's really stacked from 88 Films. So it's reasonable. It's a fun movie if you like Jackie Chan and martial arts movies. And it's a great presentation with the Dolby Vision and all the different languages that sound really good. So Jackie Chan fans, make sure to check out Dragons Forever. I know this one, people have been tracking this release. This one's been delayed probably like 3 or 4 times. It's finally out in January, so get it. It's been worth the wait, honestly.
Nice. Yeah, it is currently $29.99.
There you go.
Yeah, that sounds pretty interesting. I think one of my favorite Jackie Chan movies is the Police Story movies.
Yes, absolutely.
But switching gears a little bit, my next title is Clerks 3. And there's the back. Now, I believe, and please correct me if I'm wrong, there's a 4K Steelbook. That's the only kind of 4K.
Yes, that's exclusive to Best Buy if you're wanting to check that out.
Yeah, so this is obviously not that, but I just was saying if you are a 4K fan, there's that option too. The inside, this does have a digital code, so it's not in there right now. So I was really excited about this and a little bit wary just because, and I want to also preface this by saying this is another movie that I did a full in-depth review. So if you want to hear my like deep thoughts on it, I did a video with Dom, and you know, so I'm going to go over this pretty quickly, but just to sum up, Clerks was kind of an important film for me because it was something that I discovered pretty early as a film fan, just sort of discovering like indie films, and like the early to mid 90s was kind of like an indie film renaissance. So it was kind of an amazing time, you know, for like people like Kevin Smith and Robert Rodriguez, Quentin Tarantino, you know, Gus Van Sant. The list goes on and on and on. But anyways, I really like this film. I think it was a bittersweet coda to the trilogy, especially a trilogy that I think is overall really solid. The first one's a masterpiece. The second film is not as good, but it's still really good. It's one of the rare sequels that actually I think holds its own. So while I don't know if this necessarily like completely sticks the landing, there are some like tonal issues. There's a little bit of like maybe some pacing issues, but overall, like I really liked it. It was just I was a bawling mess at the end of it. Because if you really love these characters, you feel like I feel like I've kind of grew up with these characters. I mean, I was maybe like early teens when I first discovered Clerks, and then Mallrats, et cetera, et cetera. So, yeah, I mean, like there's a lot of people that do feel like they grew up with Randall and Dante kind of as their squad. So, no spoilers, but get your tissues ready. I was an emotional wreck. So, but you know, it's great. I love that, you know, a movie can make me feel like that. It's very well acted. There's some great cameos. There is a mountain full of like Easter eggs and callbacks and references, and there's so many people that are making appearances that were in the first film. So this really rewards long-term fans. I was trying to think if you're not I was trying to think about like if you're not a hardcore Clerks fan, if you would like this. And I think that like it might feel a little alienating if you don't get all the in jokes, if you don't get like if you don't feel connected to these characters. I don't know how much it's going to necessarily resonate with you, but um that being said, if you're a Clerks fan and you're kind of on the fence, this is really like an amazing film, and you should check it out. And yeah, I like that this has a lot of features. It's very stacked. I appreciate that. So yeah, it's definitely a worthwhile release. There is a 4K release of this that is, you said it was Best Buy exclusive.
Correct. Yes.
So yeah, and I guess I can link that in the description as well if y'all want to see if that's still available. But yeah, very much worth picking up.
Absolutely. Yeah. I you mentioned you did the video review. I did the written review for the site. So we have both options. And I do want to underline, you said this was loaded with special features. I want to underline this is loaded with special features. Like, in addition to the great commentary track, which Kevin always delivers one of the best commentary tracks out there, there's like 2 separate like hour-and-a-half documentaries on here. So like that alone's like 3 more hours worth of content, and then there's more scenes. Like, so
Yeah,
there has to be at least like 4 hours of like non-commentary special features on here. And I was just like, Jesus Christ, Kevin. But he gives us your money's worth. So if you're like a Kevin Smith fan, dive in, because there's a ton of special features. I loved going through all of it. So definitely highly recommend it. He treated physical media fans really well with this release. Like, there's an intro to the disc saying like, thank you for supporting physical media. You are what gives me my career. So I'm like, thank you, Kevin. I appreciate it.
Yeah, that's great. I love how, Kevin is definitely a home video fan, and he definitely I mean, I love like seeing his stuff out. I believe, is there like a trilogy release coming out, do you recall?
I don't think so, because I think right now the rights are scattered across different companies, because like Clerks is with Paramount now, and I think Clerks 2 might still be with the Weinstein Company, so I'm not sure where that lines up. So I think it's kind of all over the place right now. So
Okay.
unfortunately not, but they're all out there individually.
Yeah, and we'll keep our fingers crossed that someday everybody can play nice and they can collaborate. It's happened before, so
My next title is one that's actually pretty personal to me. It is from MVD Entertainment, and it is Old Friends, a documentary. Which, if you talk about like getting the tissues out for this past movie, like this, you need to like get ready, because this is a documentary about senior dogs. So if you want to see like old dogs, like just like melt your heart and just like crush your soul, like in a great way, like in a positive way, get ready, because it is happening. And I say this is personal because this actually takes place in a city that's about like 20 minutes from me, and it's actually where my wife's grandmother lives. So this is a sanctuary in Tennessee that has come about, that takes care of older dogs that are in need of help and everything. And basically the focus of this documentary is, it starts out with a dog parade as these they are moving shelters from like a kind of like their upstart shelter to this new facility. So you get to see like all these old pups being like transported to their new homes, and it's super sweet because you get to see like them in wagons and everything. It is great. I will have to say, like, most of this movie is just like for people who just like love seeing cute animals, and like this is mainly going to be the appeal, but it also is a really interesting documentary, as you get to meet these people who have like who do devote so much of their lives to this sanctuary for older dogs, where since they are older dogs, a lot of them need like more care and like more like surgeries and everything. So they have to like try to like keep the lights on and like get like donations and support and everything. But it is very tough, but it is also very worthwhile, because these are lovely animals, and just because they're older and like a little rough around the edges doesn't mean you want to necessarily like just put them down or anything. You want to like love them as long as you can and everything. And that's, you get to follow a lot of these dogs and like see people who are like coming into their lives, and like just how this one, I know it's one shelter and one community, but just seeing how much one person's ideas can help so many people and so many animals and everything. It's just a really lovely documentary. It is more the subject might outweigh the technical prowess of the documentary. It's a perfectly finely shot documentary. It's like not like too like amateurish or anything, but it is kind of more just like a straightforward documentary of just like, you can kind of tell it's just kind of more like run and gun type of stuff, but it is it's done well enough that it does the subject justice. It's just a very lovely, rewarding documentary, which will make you cry if you get as connected to these dogs and these people as like I personally did. And just it being within my community at large, within like a 30-minute drive, it added an extra level of emotion to me. But I think anyone who's an animal lover will especially really be drawn to this movie, and it's very effective in what it does. I do want to say this actually, a lot of MVD releases, it's kind of hit or miss on how much special features are going to go into it. This actually is like really pretty packed with special features. There is a 28-minute video of that initial there's a 28-minute ribbon cutting video of like whenever they opened up the new center. There's a 31-minute like unedited dog parade, so you get to see from the beginning of the end to the dog parade. A 23-minute Q&A at an in-person screening, a 34-minute Q&A after like a streaming screening, and then like another 35 minutes worth of interviews. So this is a really stacked disc, like a couple hours of extra special features. So they really made this worth your while. So if you're a documentary fan or just an animal fan, old friends, a documentary, like just bawl and watch it and just be appreciative of animals and how magical they are.
Yeah, that definitely checks a lot of boxes. I love dogs. I've had rescue dogs before. Viewers of the show know we both love a good documentary. So my next title is A Haunted Turkish Bathhouse. So how do you like that title?
It got me intrigued.
So no reversible art, but here is the disc. This is kind of funny because I had actually heard of this film before. Andre, who is an amazing editor on our videos, and occasionally he writes for GVN, but also sometimes does reviews with me. He's the one that was like, holy crap, look at this title. Doesn't this look amazing? I feel like we need to try to find this ASAP. So whenever Mondo Macabro announced that they were releasing this, we were both like, holy crap. Yeah. That's awesome. So so I will say I want to give a trigger warning before I really get into this, because this movie, and it's cool if it bothers you, it's cool if it doesn't. Just a heads up though, there is a lot of assault. There is a lot of cringy stuff. Some of it's weirdly played for laughs. But you also kind of have, I'm not excusing it, but you also kind of have to put it in a time and a place. And, like Grindhouse films always kind of have a little bit of provocative material because that's kind of the point. But, just to say, if that's not your thing, that's fine. You might want to skip this one. If you're fine with that, buckle up, because this is all the grime, sleaze, ultra horniness that you would probably expect from a title like this. It's also like a weird mixture of gangster film, erotic sleaze fest, and Japanese horror, and a big dose of like weird humor just sprinkled throughout. specifically the horror angle is, I don't know if there's a specific title for this subgenre, but it's like the like ghost cats kind of thing, where there's a Japanese tradition of spirits being reincarnated in the form of cats, usually as a way of like revenge or again, I'm not a J horror scholar, so you know. Um, but anyways, yeah, it's very bonkers. There is a scene that I thought was kind of hard to watch, and that is a pregnant woman is whipped to death. Um, so there's that. But then, right, like this, like I made it sure to take note of this while I was watching it. Right after that scene is one of those like goofy, silly kind of like scenes. So tonally, it's very weird, but it's very entertaining. The ending is crazy bananas. I won't spoil it, but it's pretty memorable. This looks great. This comes from a brand new 2K scan, and you also get some really nice features, stuff that gives you context for the film, which Mondo Macabro is really good at doing. Um, I mean, I was like, I mean, talking about how it looks, I was very impressed by just like the 2K restoration. Um, I mean, almost flawless looking, especially for something that's like, what year is this? 75. So, considering its age, it looks fantastic. And that's not surprising. Mondo always brings it. So I was really excited to finally check this out. And I knew it was in good hands with Mondo. So this might not be on your radar, but if you like these kind of movies, I think it's well worth checking out.
Yeah, I don't like the description you gave, so I'm probably going to have to take a pass on it. But it sounds interesting for those who are open to that kind of sleazy, grindhousey type, unpleasant experience for me. But sure, it'd be fun for them. My next title, it is a more recent release. It is from this past year. It is from Good Deed Entertainment and Kino Lorber, and that is Carmen, which stars Natasha McElhone, who maybe people would know from Californication. I've seen her in a lot of things here and there. So no reversible cover art, just here. So this one, I was kind of intrigued by this one. So this one is about a Maltese woman who she basically since the age of 16, she's been caring for her brother. Apparently, it's like a tradition in Malta where whenever a young man is chosen to, I guess, be a priest, his eldest sister becomes like basically his servant, whereas like fixes him meals and makes sure the house is great and everything. So she's been doing this since she was 16, and now she's like right around 50 years old now. And then this isn't really a spoiler, but her brother dies, and she is left at a point where she doesn't know what to do with her life. Basically, she is like not really educated. She's only done this one thing for most of her life. But the main thing is that no one knows that her brother died. So she begins to kind of take on the role of the priest secretly. Like she'll go into the confessional box and kind of like make her voice a little deeper and kind of like counsel some of the people who are coming to confession and everything, and kind of like shaking things up basically. But also this is kind of leads into her, this is basically a story of her trying to find her voice in her, like herself and her community, what she's like, what she wants out of life after not being able to live for so long. And the movie itself is okay. There's a lot of really interesting things I really like about it. There are some like kind of slower elements or things that this says it's inspired by a true story, which I haven't looked to see like how closely it is, but there's kind of some moments that strain credulity, or is just kind of told in more of like a perfunctory or like kind of like matter of fact way, where I think it could have like given a little bit more like narrative pizzazz. But that being said, I think overall it's a good movie. Like on like a 5-star scale, I'd probably give it a 3. Like it's pretty much like right down the middle. Like it's maybe just slightly better than like okay, but it's not amazing. And I really like the performance by Natasha McElhone. But it's just like the narrative itself. There are some things that keep it from being like, ooh, this is really amazing. It's just like it's pretty good. So if you're looking for a pretty enjoyable, like feminist leaning drama, like a woman like discovering her voice type of movie, this is from a female perspective from the director side as well. So that's, I always appreciate that. This is a fine watch. I wouldn't say like if the subject doesn't interest you, don't go out of your way. But if you're interested in like more like female focused like movies, there are worse things to watch. I've seen better female fronted movies this past year, but this one is fine. So Carmen from Good Deed Entertainment, probably at least worth a watch if you're semi interested.
Nice. That does sound pretty interesting, and it's kind of funny because I feel a little similar about my next title, although it's very different, and that is Laws of Gravity. So this is one that I was actually not super familiar with, but when I was researching it before I watched it, and then watched it again with the commentary track, it is kind of a fascinating story. I dare say the making of is maybe more interesting than the movie itself. But for those of you that don't know, this was made on a very low budget. Reports say about 38,000. It got really great reviews. It holds the coveted 100% freshness rating on Rotten Tomato currently. And Roger Ebert actually gave it a glowing review as well. And I think they all kind of say what I think, which is it is good. It's not groundbreaking even for the early 90s in terms of subject, in terms of like this really gritty kind of city like crime situation. But I think what elevates it is the acting, the camera work, just how everybody just kind of feels very natural and incredibly real. This is, I also noted that this is Peter Green's first film. That is this guy right here. My fellow elder millennials will remember him as the bad guy from The Mask. And also he has a very memorable role in Pulp Fiction. So yeah, so it is a pretty fascinating film. Again, I will say, kind of like what you were saying, it's I've seen better movies that tackle this same subject, but I have to really give it props because it is engaging. The acting is great, and I think everybody just feels so real, and everything just has this kind of like gritty weight to it that you really, I mean, you kind of are okay with it maybe not reinventing the wheel per se. So it's great. I love that this has a commentary track. um so I will say transfer wise, Kino's usually really great about their transfers, but I will say this is a little bit grain heavy, and it has some artifacts. um I will chalk that up to probably the original elements being used maybe weren't great. Um, I will say that like I can certainly see how like there's an uptick in like clarity and like color balance, but it's not pristine, but that's fine. I think that it's probably the best that they had to work with. So just keep that in mind. But this is a really interesting indie film. This guy also did Drowning Mona. Uh, do you remember that movie?
I have not seen it now.
Uh, I feel like no one's seen that movie, and I feel like it's a movie I made up in my head, but I swear it's real. It has, look it up. It has a stellar cast, but that's a great movie. But anyways, I digress. The director now does a lot of television, and he still works. So if you want to see his feature film debut, and again for a debut, it's very, I mean, that's another point. Like this was his first effort, which is even more impressive. So definitely I think worth checking out.
Yeah, that's awesome. I was able to check that out over my holiday
Mm.
break as well. I pretty much echo everything you say. I think in the years since it came out, I believe that like you've just seen it done better. Like we've seen crime dramas kind of evolve and get like really great, like in the time being. But for that time especially, I think it's a pretty solid drama. And I really like, I think the ending is really impactful. I just think overall as a movie, I was like, oh, this is kind of familiar. I guess I'll just say.
Yeah, and again, I don't want to take anything away from it because I mean it was made on such a tiny budget, but it just has a raw kind of energy that is really exciting and kind of like the original Clerks, it kind of came out of that grab a camera, grab your friends, make a movie, kind of DIY energy. So I'm glad that he still makes projects and yeah.
Yeah, and for any of you Sopranos fans, young Edie Falco is in
Mm.
this movie, so that if that interests you, check her out as well. She does a really good job. Like you said, the whole cast does a really great job. Moving on to my next title is from Kino Classics as well. And it is the rare 3D title. It is The Diamond Wizard in
Mm.
3D, which I talked about a title about a month or so ago from Classic Flicks called I the Jury, which was in 3D, which I did not get to check out because I do not own a 3D TV. But with Kino, they give you the option of also doing the old school red and cyan, and they bring those 3D glasses as well. So on the menu screen, you are given the option of which 3D version to watch, which I did not realize until I was prepping for this. There is a 2D version on there. It just is not like intuitive on first glance. It's under the 3D option, which is for people with 3D TVs, but there's also a listing for 2D under that. But I was like, I don't have that. So I just went to the red and cyan version, and there's no 2D version there. So I was like, okay, I was going to watch it in 3D anyway, but I thought I was being forced to, but it was a lot of fun. So I'm glad I did. So yeah, it comes with the 3D glasses. I guess if you want someone to watch it with you, buy another 3D release which has this, or fish in the back of your closet for your old 3D glasses. But as a 3D feature, I think that holds us up quite a bit because the 3D is really well done for the type of 3D that I watched. It gives it a lot of depth. It's actually like there is a little bit of like, here I holding something in the foreground, but even just like whenever you see people standing beside cars, like it's really interesting to see that depth on display. I'm like, oh, this is pretty cool. And I had to wear it over my glasses, so it's like it's not perfect, it's not ideal, but it is a fun way. It's a novelty to watch a film in that way, and it was fun to like experience because I don't get to do that a lot. But as a transfer, it looks pretty solid. This has been restored by the 3D Film Archive, so they always put a lot of like great effort into restoring these films. There are still a little bit of like nicks, like little specks of scratches here and there on like, especially like the main print, but the 3D seems like as good as you could possibly hope for. The film itself is not completely groundbreaking, which is why I say the 3D kind of holds it up. It's basically about a like an American detective coming overseas and like teaming up with Scotland Yard to find this man who has been abducted to try to basically manufacture counterfeit diamonds. So it's just like them trying to like solve this crime, and it devolves into this outlandish finale with a bunch of fire and like craziness, so which I did appreciate, but I was like, this seems a little over the top and like played up for 3D, but it is what it is. But overall, it's a fine noir like mystery. It has Dennis O'Keefe in it, and it's it is fine. It's like a fine, but if you're into 3D films, I'm glad that Kino Classic is releasing it. It looks good. This does come with a alternate opening. There's a little featurette on the 3D restoration, and then there's a 12-minute. It's labeled as a commentary, but it's basically just a 12-minute like audio like featurette from like a historian, just kind of telling a little bit about the film and everything. So there is no full-length commentary, but you do get a pretty nice selection of special features. So the Diamond Wizard in 3D. If you're wanting some old school 3D, this is fun, and I had a good time with it.
Nice. Yeah, that sounds really interesting. I like almost requested that title, but I'm always a little wary because, like you were talking about, like how gimmicky it is.
Yeah.
So my final title is one that it's very weird, but we'll get into that. So it is The Girl on a Motorcycle. Slipcover, very provocative. Longtime viewers will know we sometimes swap like provocative titles or covers or whatever. So there's the back. We'll take this off. This does have reversible art. Let me take the disc out. And there's that.
I like the other one. I'm not gonna lie.
Yeah. So this movie is very of its time. So this was 1968. This was a pretty stellar year for films. This was the same year as Night of the Living Dead, Rosemary's Baby. Not a lot of great stuff happening in the country. That's a whole other topic. But
yeah.
Anyways, yeah, so it is like very ingrained in this like swinger, free love, everybody does everybody kind of thing. So it's basically about a young woman who she takes off on her motorcycle, so as advertised, and she kind of reflects on her life choices as she cruises down a green screen, a very obvious green screen. I'll get into that, but so a lot of it like takes place sort of in various flashbacks, and it's like she's contemplating if she wants to be with this kind of bookish, really sweet but very meek school teacher, or does she want the bad boy philosopher who is also a teacher? Tale as old as time, I guess. But
yeah, you know those philosophers, they're old bad boys.
Yeah, so she kind of like tries to justify to herself like why she constantly cheated on her fiance and then husband, and he like as a wedding gift the bad boy philosopher gave her the motorcycle. I will say that it doesn't overall kind of hold up. It is very much of its time. I can see where they're trying to be satirical, but it doesn't quite land. I don't think the themes are taken maybe far enough to really get its point home. And there's also nothing that is so universal that it kind of helps the datedness of it. And especially some of the it's actually not too cringy given the time period, but there is some very questionable stuff. But I'm not the moral police. It's a movie. There's nothing that was super egregious that I feel like I need to warn anybody about. But yeah, I will say that it's engaging enough and interesting enough that I was at least invested. It is also very surreal and experimental at times in its visuals, like the use of colors, the use of editing, the use of music. This is really fantastically shot, I will say. But yeah, and there's a lot of bad green screening, and like there's green screening when they're riding, which I get. But then there's like green screen sometimes when they're not, and I'm like, why? it was shot in Switzerland and Germany and England. So they do, I think, use the locales, to the maximum effect. I won't spoil it, but the ending is so jarring. I kind of almost respect the hell out of it for going so hard. So I'll just say that if that sounds intriguing enough, definitely check it out. That kind of sums up pretty much what you're getting. Oh, I will say I did forget. There is like a minor sort of racial pejorative used, which is unfortunate, but I'm not excusing it at all. They knew better, but yeah, just as a warning. But
Yeah.
overall, really interesting film. Don't know if I would watch it a lot. Um,
Yeah. Yeah, I'll have to give it a shot and see how this girl is on her motorcycle, just jetting around, infidelity. It sounds great.
yeah, I definitely want to hear if you do watch it. I want to hear what you think of the ending because it is pretty wild.
All right, I'll let you know. My final title is from Scorpion Releasing and Kino Lorber, and that is Walk Proud, which is kind of a mixed bag of a film. So this is about a young high school student. He is in a Mexican street gang, and he meets this young white girl who they meet because her like car stalls out, and he offers to help, and they start to form like a kind of like a forbidden relationship. What just like society forbids it. Like you can't have like this young Mexican boy and this young pretty white girl mixing and stuff. But the movie actually doesn't spend too much time like doing like the kind of Romeo and Juliet type thing. Mainly it is focused on this young man and his kind of struggle between his heritage, like his Chicano heritage, like he's always talking about like his Chicano pride and all that stuff, and like his like kind of the familial feelings he has with his like fellow gang members and what it means to him and everything, but also knowing that that lifestyle does lead to heartache and death and all that stuff. Uh, so I do appreciate certain aspects of the narrative. I think uh, the kind of like the kind of internal struggle of like trying reckoning with where you are in your life and what you want to like make of it, even in face of like obstacles and like social pressures and like cultural pressures. I appreciate that aspect. What I don't completely gel with is just kind of they seem to like lean heavily on like Mexican stereotypes. Like I don't know completely. I don't want to like I'm not an expert on like Mexican culture, but I do feel that they were probably leaning a bit on like kind of like the stereotypical side of things and making. I feel like they probably made them like thicken their accents. Like this seems like the type of movie that would do that. Like it seems like the casting where you were like, oh, can you be like really Mexican? Like that sounds like kind of like what they were going for, like kind of like some of the slang and kind of like their drawl and everything. I'm a Spanish descent, and I've been like my grandparents are not Mexican, but like they are Spanish, and I I know how they sound, and I don't just some of it kind of like bothered me. Just like I know, and especially when I see some of the interviews that are on this disc, like just I know they've had like even more this came out in the 80s, so they've had decades to or 79 actually. So they've had decades to even be more assimilated into like American culture. So some of these actors, they speak like with much less of an accent, but I think it just leads me to believe that that was kind of put on, and just like some of the cultural things, it felt kind of like from a more white perspective than like an authentic Mexican perspective, like telling a Mexican tale. So it just kind of seemed a lot of like blunt at times and kind of like slightly cringeworthy to me. So it's a bit of a mixed bag. It's not a failure of a movie. There are some interesting things. It just seems iffy. And like it makes me feel weird. That's all I'll say. Like it's okay, but it gives me some weird feelings. So as a disc, as a Blu-ray disc, it's pretty strong. It comes from a 2K master, but as usual with Scorpion releases, that doesn't mean it's completely like free of flaws. There are still like nicks and scratches and everything. It just means it was given a 2K scan, and it's better than it would have been on like DVD. And like judging from like some of the old trailers, it's much improved, but there are still room for like a carefully, meticulously restored presentation, but it looks fine. This has a surprising number of special features. There are 4 interviews that range from, one is 3 minutes, but usually they run about 15 to 20 minutes with some of the actors who are involved with this. And 3 of them are Zoom interviews, one's in person, and the in-person one happens to be the longest one, and it's the one I enjoyed the most. But overall, they give some nice insights into things. But overall, the movie itself, I'm kind of split on it, but there are positive elements to it. So if it intrigues you, check it out for yourself. Just I've given you the caveats. So walk proud from Scorpion releasing. It's a pretty strong release for a movie, and I'm glad to have watched it, but it is what it is.
It definitely sounds like some pretty yikes moments, so I might kind of skip that one.
That's fine.
But to end it on a positive, again, we are giving away 2 Halloween Ends digital codes. When you're entered to win, it's only 1 per person, just so you know.
Yeah.
Again, you're not winning this. This is just a example of the code you're going to win. But to do that, all you need to do is comment below this video and let us know what title we talked about that you're most excited for. And it's that easy. So as always, thank you for hanging out with us, and we'll see you in the next episode.